All right, here we go. This is the System Failure Podcast number 53. How are we doing, Nate?
Hey, good, Brian. I'm doing excellent this week. I've got some hair gel, some argan oil in my hair here. I put in, this is my first day with it. I put in way too much, so I've got wet-looking hair. But I'm pretty excited about that. Argan oil comes from Morocco, so, I mean, the idea is to, actually, you can leave it in your hair and not remove it. So I'm feeling good about that. And on Friday, we had the last ever Grand Tour special on Amazon, which was pretty good. I got some. The thing about the Grand Tour is they always have outstanding soundtracks. So I heard a few more good songs. One in particular from Dire Straits that's on my favorite list on Spotify.
Is it the Sultans of Swing?
No, that's it's not that one.
That's the Dire Straits song that I know.
Yeah, there's the Romeo and Juliet song that's by them. That's pretty good. But this one I'd never heard before. Brothers in Arms, pretty good. I have to say. It was it struck a nice melancholy tone for the three Top Gear lads' last ever, magnum opus together. So, and of course it's fall, so it's football Sunday, and so we got the Patriots this afternoon. So I'm excited about that. And those are the three items on my dashboard at the moment. How about yourself?
All right. Well, I mean, apparently we're the fourth biggest history podcast in Singapore.
Yeah. We got one of these emails that's one of the ones that comes to nop@substack.com, and this is one of those people that they want you to pay for. Usually it's search engine optimization. In this case, they want us to pay for podcast rankings. But yeah, well, I guess it must be our recent interview with the venerable Dr. Michael Hudson that's spiked us. But yeah, I guess we're very popular in Singapore. That's great news, huh?
Singapore, I mean, that is the place of the judicial canings, but also, they're sort of super libertarian, but also have public housing, right?
Yeah, I would say they're not libertarian in the sense that they have health care for every man, woman, and child. Every Singaporean gets free health care, and they have a lot of government housing. The Singaporeans take their classical liberalism, they take capitalism very seriously in the sense that the goal is to provide housing and medical care to the masses at economies of scale so that businesses can get away with paying their employees less. So it's easier to run a business. The Singaporeans wanted to make their culture a paradise for entrepreneurs and a hell for anyone who chances to smoke a J-bone. So shout out to any Singaporeans who might be tuned into the pod.
All right. So I guess what else is going on? Well, I think I gotta get back into fasting. You used to fast on Mondays, right?
Yeah,
do you still do that?
About to do it again tomorrow. Today's Sunday. Tomorrow I will just have water the whole day long. I'll admit it makes for a brutal evening, and it makes for a sad you go into bed without dinner is a sad state of affairs. But the sleep is unreal. You'll just have unbelievable sleep. Do
you?
Oh yeah, great dreams, and you just wake up feeling amazing. And then the next day you have a couple of blueberries or whatever, or I drink a bone broth. And even just the slightest bit of food is like it's like you're crazily high from blueberries. It's a wild rush when you get that first bite of food the next day.
I've done some fasts, but I think it's really been a couple years actually. I don't think it's since we were living together back at 42 Carriage Lane I've really done any fasting.
Well, you gotta get back on it, son. Yeah. Make it happen.
Well, I went to the Taj Indian buffet on Friday, and I don't know. Sometimes it sits better than other times, and I guess it did not sit as well.
They hung an L on you this time, did they?
Yeah. I gotta clean out my digestive tract.
Oh, well, a fast is the best thing for that.
There was just also this one time that I was down in New York and then going to Maryland for this Nagong thing.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
But I ate I bought a bunch of snacks because we were out in the Catskills at this cabin before we went to Maryland, and we had to bring in food, and I brought in a whole bunch of nuts, and I guess if you eat a crazy amount of nuts, man, I don't know
what are we talking, cashews, almonds, or peanuts?
I think it was cashews. I ate a couple bags of cashews. It's just so fibrous and whatnot. I was shitting cashews for days. Basically, is what it was.
I think I'm going lactose intolerant as I get older. I bought a bucket of a tub of Greek yogurt 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I ate it, and at first, and I didn't realize it was the yogurt, but so I ate it 2 days, and each of the 2 days I ate the yogurt, and then I became extremely gassy, which was highly amusing. But then I had a terrible case of the trots. It was like taking one of those green Gatorade water bottles, and just spraying into the toilet. I was oh man, I got it. So while I was amused by the gas, I was not amused by the spraying of feces. So yeah, I'm going completely. The Greek yogurt. So I got to make sure I avoid dairy in all of its forms.
Well, fasting really does like reset your digestive tract,
Yeah.
and I think ideally I would make it like a couple days. We'll see how it goes. I haven't tried this in a while.
In November of 22, I hung 5 days. I put 5 days up on the scoreboard. 5 days, nothing but water. But I found that I didn't really feel. It seemed like all the benefits were mostly in the beginning. By the end, I didn't really lose any. I lost like a bunch of weight the first day, and then I slowly put the weight back on as 5 days wore out. I just didn't. It didn't really. It seemed like the bulk of the benefits were in day one.
Well, my recollection from the fasting is that you have you go to the toilet, it's like normal the first time, but then there's like the second time after that where your body really clears some stuff out.
Yeah.
And that's what I look forward to.
Well, the episode number 53 has been thoroughly revolting so far, but but yes, I agree. What happened to you at the Taj? Have you been like riding the toilet like one might ride a mechanical bull, holding on with one hand and mopping at your sweaty brow with the other? Were you up all night, sweating through your sheets and cycling your feet in futility?
Well, it wasn't like the last time I went to the Great Wall Buffet, and I think I had like blood in my stool or something.
That's the worst. Yeah.
That was these Chinese buffets are just not what they are not a good thing to be eating.
Yeah, their business model is going to incentivize them to poison you to the max.
It wasn't that bad, but it just wasn't good. It wasn't that dramatic or anything. Woo. Okay. Well, anyway, fasting. So anyway, I think fasting is really good though for like cultivating like willpower and whatnot. And I think your power of choice is like super important, right? That's you're like you're like Neo in the Matrix. So you've got choice, man. I don't know. I guess this is what this
is Larry Fishburne holding out a red and a blue pill, one in either palm, and you get to choose which one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't know. There's just you get to practice that skill directly, right? And so I guess I can't think of a better way to exercise your will over the Matrix than fasting. And I would have to imagine that if you went into a cave and fasted for like 40 days, you probably would come out
different.
Yeah, and that's what old JC did, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I just have some other random thoughts on my mind. Also, kind of speaking of the Matrix, maybe. Have we talked about the Mayans on this podcast?
I don't think we have, but in what specific capacity? We're talking about the Mayan long count calendar?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they really nailed it with the, sort of the end of the world in 2012. We really changed from having, this, Jetsons, view of the future where, technology was going to be a good thing to now technology is like a bad thing. It's something to be avoided.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to come around and become a benevolent force, but I don't know. The Mayans really nailed it.
So there's this old thing where you remember T-Mac had the time wave theory. Do you remember this crazy business?
What is this time wave theory?
Well, there is a mystical Chinese. I don't want to call it a text. It's 64 hexagrams. Hexagram is like a tic-tac-toe board. It's like there's 9 squares and 6 of them are filled in and 3 are. But you can create different patterns. It's like a 3x3. It's like a computer screen that's 3 pixels by 3 pixels. But you can have the pixels either be black or white, and you can create 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. And T-Mac used this thing to create a graph of novelty in the universe. And once he got the formula right, he found that great events in history, like the dropping of the atomic bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, matched this is bizarre stuff, right? Matched specific points in his graph where there was a lot of novelty versus other times when there weren't. And then, to T-Mac's astonishment, he just this time wave theory predicts that novelty goes asymptotic in December of 2012, right? You can see where this graph, it's got ups, it's got downs, but it gradually improves over time. Novelty gradually increases in the universe over time. According to T-Mac, the universe is a novelty-conserving engine where the novelty of yesterday becomes a platform on which the novelty of today is built, and then that process repeats tomorrow. And he had pinpointed December of 2012 as the specific date that the novelty in the universe goes asymptotic, the end of time or the end of history. And then discovered after that the Mayan long count calendar predicted the same end of the world within a few days of his prediction. So, I mean, who the hell knows how much stock to place in a crackpot theory like that? But your mention of the Mayan long count calendar and your previous mentions of the Kali Yuga all are all of a piece of with T-Max time wave theory.
Yeah, it all fits together a bit.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Well, I mean, just another crazy thing that happened is, I work at some kind of insurance building, right? And I don't know, dude, like this crazy homeless guy, like made it up to the 3rd floor and was like knocking on the door and like trying to get in to use our bathroom.
You all got infiltrated?
Yeah, basically. Wow. And, man, that, like, the stench coming off this guy was unreal. Oh. He was this crazy, sweaty guy. Well, I mean, I guess what happened is he knocked on the door, and, like, usually, like, maintenance people are knocking on the door, and I was, like, across the hall, and someone has to let the person in when they're knocking on the door, right? So I went over, and I just wasn't, like, anticipating, like, a crazy person. And, so once he, came and I had to then deal with the situation to get him, back out.
Oh, so it was up to you to get this man with a massive colon full of feces and a terrible stench back outside. Did you let him use the bathroom first?
No. Yeah. Who knows how that would have gone and how long it would have been in there.
Wow. So, man, that's crazy. Yeah. So, was it hard to get this gentleman back outside? Did you have to be like, did you have to give him the bum's rush? Was he reluctant to go?
Well, it wasn't, just once we assessed that he was, like not here to do maintenance or anything else, I told him he had to leave, basically. And so, I don't know, it was just really uncomfortable, is what it was. I mean, I guess it wasn't super hard, but, I guess, I had to figure out what was going on. Just when something happens you're not expecting, it just, I guess in retrospect, it would have been, if I knew what to expect, it would have been easy to, you stiff arm him out of the way. But, I don't know, now obviously, I sympathize with our homeless people, and it goes back to talking about the power of choice and the Matrix, and I guess this is part of our greater constellation of ideas. And so, I don't, it was a horrifying situation for me, but I don't know, like, there's been, like, some hot weather lately, and, like, the homeless people are, like, stirred up, man. And
hot weather does nothing for eye-watering, throat-choking stenches, that's for sure.
Yeah, oh, man, dude, there's this other guy who, like, on Congress Street, he'd just thrown up, and he was, like, he was, like, on drugs or something, man. It was a bad look. And, man, yeah, I don't know, just this crazy future that we're in. It's pretty the Mayans really nailed it, I guess, is what I'd have to say. Right?
Yeah. The one thing about the Mayans is there was also remember they were going to fire up the Large Hadron Collider out in Geneva at CERN in 2012, and they were trying to discover this Higgs boson, this God particle. The Higgs field is the thing that makes it so that mass feels like it has mass, right? Like if you imagine if you have a wet table and a coffee mug, and the table's wet, so the mug can slide across that table pretty easily. But if the table was dry, there'd be a lot more. The coefficient of friction would be higher, so the mug would be harder to move along the table. That resistance is mass. Right? There's something about the energy field that we're in that makes it feel like things are heavy or things have momentum or inertia. Mass is this experience of, it's almost like friction within an energy field. So the discovery of the Higgs field or the Higgs boson in 2012 is the only other significant thing that happened that year. Are we gonna see that as some major turning point in history? I don't know. Is that when the universe fractured and the Bernstein Bears became the Bernstein Bears, and the Fruit of the Loom cornucopia just became Fruit of the Loom without the cornucopia? Who the hell knows? There's all kinds of crazy ideas about 2012 that are always fun to bandy about.
Yeah. Well, see, maybe the Berenstein Bears thing is a little crazy. It's the Fruit of the Loom one that really gets me.
Yeah.
I guess if people don't know, there's supposed to be a cornucopia in the Fruit of the Loom logo, but I guess it's not actually there. And if you see the mock-ups, if you just Google it, you can see the mock-ups that people do, and it's really what you would expect it to be.
Yeah. We all have this collective delusion that the Fruit of the Loom logo once featured a cornucopia. It's a prime example of the Mandela effect.
Yeah. But mostly, though, I think that doesn't matter, and it's pretty esoteric. And it is like, well, I mean, we talked about the cultivation and discernment for like several podcasts in a row, and I sympathize with my homeless brethren, right? Because, I mean, being like mentally well, I think is like a challenge for like everyone, right?
Most definitely.
And it's just a question of like whether you can make the grade, or if you're gonna like fall off the treadmill and fall into like the meat grinder at the bottom and get destroyed basically. So man, I would really like to see like the like political change to sort of address this issue. But of course, our two bumbling presidential candidates, there's like absolutely no chance. But I guess just before we get into politics and talk about the debate, just like, I mean, ultimately though, it is about the power of choice, right? And so, I mean, if you're like a homeless person, or if you're like, if the sensation is like a lot, I mean, I think you just have to focus on what your choices are, and like, I mean, that's like well, all you can do anyway, right? Is try to make positive choices. So, I don't know. That was like a shocking incident.
There's a weird tension because, like you, I appreciate whenever something starts happening to across populations. The one thing we can be sure of, it's not the fault of any one individual when you see it. When the banks blow out the cost of housing for everyone in the entire society, a certain amount of people are going to fall out the bottom of the economy and end up without shelter. And these are all the people who everyone else, we couldn't stand to have them couch surf one more night. Now they're out on the street. So being homeless, it's like a self-selecting. It's all the most obnoxious and most difficult people are the ones who end up on the street, and then they end up becoming even more mentally ill and even less presentable. And you end up with a snowballing positive feedback loop. So I do
negative feedback loop.
Excuse me, yeah, negative feedback loop. I too am sympathetic to their plight, but also I just remember when I worked at the Portland Public Schools, there was one homeless person who was rolling around. It was like 11 in the morning. He was rolling around the sidewalk, fishing handfuls of crap out of the back of his pants, and you're just like, oh no. It was just a terrible scene. That's a person you just don't want to interact with. But on the other hand, what's happening is the problem that's the thing that's generating all this homelessness is systemic in nature and not the fault of folks making individual choices. Now, having said that, right, you said it all before with respect to fasting. The way to get yourself out of a homeless situation is to start making some sacrifices in the moment for your future benefit, giving up some pawns in the here and now to maybe take a queen down the line, or a rook, or a bishop, or a knight, or anything. And it's a tough dichotomy because I'm with you. I'm sympathetic to their plight, but I also can't deal with these folks who their economic conditions have just caused them to descend into one of Dante's 9 circles of hell. It's truly shocking. I remember seeing a homeless person shivering on the bench on Christmas Eve when we were here in this apartment tower in 2022. It's just like a horrible sight. You're like, man, I want to bring this person like some hot soup or something, or a blanket or anything. But then I also have no idea what's going to happen when I go up to them. They're going to be completely out of their mind, and it's not safe to like approach these people. So, yeah, it's a tough dichotomy. I think that the system is just this situation is crying out for systemic reform, and no reform seems to be incoming. It's more about disciplining voters to pull the lever for who the people in power want them to than the people in power changing so that people will be more likely to pull the lever on their behalf.
Well, I mean, the problem is that we live on the Death Star, right? And it's our job to give the Death Star its economic might so that it can blow up other planets and basically be a terror in the universe.
Consume other star systems to make for the grandeur and glory of the Empire.
Yeah, and so like this debate between Trump and Kamala happened, and I mean, I guess I'd have to say that Trump mostly took an L. I mean, some people are trying to say that this was somehow good for Trump, including Trump himself. But well, Dave Smith says this about Donald Trump, and it's that he doesn't read any books.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe the Donald.
Yeah, he's certainly good with a crowd, and he has solid powers of persuasion. But I think the situation has just like they kind of the powers that be know how to deal with the Donald now, and he's just not going to be able to get in there and shake things up.
I think he took bribes. I think he's accepted all that. He was an outsider in 2016, and he would go on the debate stage and insult the other Republican primary candidates and lay out conspiracy theories. It was awesome. And now he's just got no real. It's just going to be. He's already been in office for 4 years. No swamps were drained, and I mean, it's just like no dictatorships were born either, right? It was just a zero. And like, so now you have on the debate stage, on the one hand, the establishment candidate who wants to paint this other person as some kind of an existential threat and make themselves out to be the only choice. And on the other hand, you've got the Donald who was once free to say anything, but now who's accepted the bag from Wall Street and can't.
He's been shot too.
You would think. I thought that was going to be a major. I thought that was going to allow the Donald to coast to victory. That was the pre-Kamala days. But I thought that just the way that he behaved in the direct aftermath of the shooting seemed like this is awesome. The Donald's mojo is back. It's going to be a wild election season. But now my fear is that the Wall Street has closed. Wall Street and Big Pharma and the military-industrial complex have closed ranks. And now both can't. It's just the same. It's the same as every election, pre-2016.
Well, if the powers that be want to trot it like a walking corpse, then the Donald can beat up on Joe Biden, but he's just not going to be able to beat someone who can string a few sentences together.
Not without truly being external to the system. But when he's got all those Walmart dollars, all those Wall Street dollars in his campaign finance account, he can't say the things that need to be said about the system, about the horrifying homelessness, or the many problems, the steady decline of the system we're all sitting here watching.
Well, I mean, it's kind of a big deal that he has like RFK and Tulsi Gabbard. I would say in his transition team, they seem like smart, intelligent people, and not part of the death cult. But I don't know, when he's up there debating Kamala, though. I mean, Tulsi's ended Kamala's career the first time. And,
yes, she's terrible. Imagine if they had Tulsi or RFK or Vivek on the debate stage. They could blow a hole in Kamala's hull, and we could watch her battleship sink without a trace. But instead, I tried to watch a few minutes of the debate. It was mind-numbing. My eyes just glazed over. It was a total zero. And I think back to the 2016 debates with the Donald and Hillary, and they were like electrifying, events. I miss that, and I want that to happen again. Where the Donald's like, because you'd be in jail, the campaign is just missing any mojo at all, and so that's depressing, to say the least, eh?
I mean, I don't know how much it would matter if the Donald got elected anyway. I mean, it's slightly less risk of nuclear war with Russia, which I guess if we go up in a mushroom cloud, we'll rue the day we did not elect the Donald. But
but the Donald is all for the continued immolation of Palestinians in Gaza, which is that's why I think I'm going to have to cast my vote for Jill Stein, who's campaign finance advisor we had on the pod 3 weeks back. I voted for her in 2016, and I think I'm going back to the old tried and true this time. I voted for Bernie in 2020 and wrote him in, but I think I'm going back to Jill Stein this year. She's the only candidate who, there's Cornel West too, but I think Jill. There was I guess I should read the tweet now that we're talking about Jill Stein. There's been a lot of slandering of Jill. There's been a uptick in the slandering of Jill Stein from AOC specifically and other Democratic Party apparatchiks recently, and I just had a quick tweet I wanted to read about that. This is from Glenn Greenwald. We all remember Glenn for founding this new media outlet, The Intercept, using it to release all of Edward Snowden's secrets secrets about the NSA he wanted disseminated to the public, and then leaving the Intercept because it became clogged with corporate money and incapable of responsibly reporting on world events. Now, Glenn lives with his husband and children in Brazil, but he's got one of these big online presences and is one of the premier journalists in the world. And his quote of yesterday is, "I've never ever seen Democrats talk this frequently and with such rage about Jill Stein or any third-party candidacy. The internal polling showing how well Stein is doing among key constituencies in swing states must be very, very alarming to them." And he's responding to a tweet from someone named Keith Ellison, whom I don't know, who was saying, "If you've ever been annoyed by politicians who only show up at election time, then you've got to be annoyed with Jill Stein." It's just like a propaganda tweet.
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of stuff about like Jill Stein on the Reddits and whatnot.
Yeah.
And they're like super upset.
She's got all of her policy positions seem correct to me, whereas the Donald doesn't have a single policy I agree with, except for possibly the de-escalation of hostilities over Ukraine. And so, I think I'm going back to the Green Party. That's where I'm at anyways now with 2 months to go to the election. What are you thinking, Brian?
For who I'm going to vote for?
Yeah, what are you? Is it going to be like there's an argument to be made that casting a ballot for the Donald is your way of hurling the gauntlet into the machine. I'm just not seeing it, I guess. If the Donald had more... If he was more like the 2016 Donald, I'd be tempted. But
the Democrats sent me like a mail-in ballot, which I thought was funny because I'm definitely...
It just showed up in your... What?
Well, it was like an application for a mail-in ballot. Yeah. And so, the joke's on them because I'm definitely going to vote, and it's not going to be for any Democrats.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
But as to who I'm going to vote for, I don't know, like not Democrat. I guess we have ranked choice, and so, I mean, I guess maybe the Donald would be on those ranks somewhere. But
that's what I'll do.
I don't know, and if the Democrats hadn't like mailed me that ballot, I probably just wouldn't vote.
Well, I'm glad they did then. I think I'll do the same, Brian. If it's going to be ranked choice voting, I'll just rank every candidate who's not the Democrats. I think that we must boycott the Democrats until they return to policies that benefit the middle and working classes. And absent that, we can't be fooled by the abortion debate, and we can't be fooled by the threat of the end of democracy, ironically being peddled by someone who themselves didn't get any votes in the primary. Yeah, I agree. And we got to I guess since we have ranked choice voting, the real question is, how are you going to rank the non-Democrat choices? And so, that's really...
The Democrats said you were like un-American and a bad person if you questioned whether Joe Biden was competent enough to run for office.
That's awesome.
And then they crammed someone down our throats without any kind of democratic oversight. And so...
I'm seeing the yard signs that say Harris Waltz, obviously. I've seen a few of those, and I'm like, a month ago, these would have been like Biden, obviously, a person who can't walk or speak. These are just people who aren't tuned into what's going on. They're just paying attention to the superficial. Right? That's the only way you could possibly. Right?
Well, there's just so much propaganda, or there's so much stuff like on the internets and the media to tell you that like you're a fascist if you want to vote for the Donald. And so how did we break free of that orbit?
For me, it was the student loan thing. Like Bernie was like, we're just going to get rid of these student loans so we can have a vibrant economy again, instead of taking all of this money that young people are making and giving it to banks. And then when I saw them just sandbag Bernie in 16 and in 20, I was like, oh, these people are they're working against me and not for me. And we mentioned it last week, but the Biden administration's attempt at student debt forgiveness, where they used as a legal rationale the 2021 HEROES Act, instead of invoking the 1965 Higher Education Act signed by Lyndon Johnson, like that really... That there's like certain facts that are just devastating to the worldview. The idea that we're all fascists who don't want to vote for Kamala. One of them is that. The other one is the realization that Obama ran on codifying Roe v. Wade in 2008, matriculated into the presidency with both houses of Congress, and did not a single thing because they don't want to remove that political football from play.
I guess for me, I think the biggest thing is that just Obama ran on like hope and change, and it was really just more of the same.
Yeah.
Like the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq continued. There's all kinds of drone killings. there was that NDA thing that made it legal to propagandize.
The 2013
Americans.
National Defense Authorization Act made it legal for state propaganda to target United States civilians. It used to be illegal. It was the Smith-Mundt Act from, I think that was World War I era legislation. The Smith-Mundt Act made it illegal for propaganda to be used on our own. That's only for foreign nationals that we're supposed to use propaganda on. And thanks to Obama, they don't have to worry about that little technicality anymore.
And then there was the thing where Reddit was back when Reddit was good.
Oh yeah,
like it was just a naturally like a pro Bernie place because every. the Wall Street thing had just happened. There was like lots of talk of the 99% and universal health care. And then just overnight, you were a Bernie bro if you supported Bernie Sanders, and then you had to, it was I'm with her for Hillary. And so, man, yeah, there's just no way I could ever vote for a Democrat ever again.
I think I hear the soft melodies of taps being played as I think back and salute the once great Reddit and how it died in like 2016, as a result of that cycle, never to be seen or heard from again.
Like one thing is that like Dick Cheney endorsed Kamala Harris,
it's great.
And people actually like talk about it. Like that is like Dick Cheney doesn't have a heartbeat, right? And he's just like the all-time worst person. And Dick Cheney endorsement. I guess I wouldn't vote for a Republican either unless I felt like it was someone like outside the system, which is like maybe what the Donald might be on a good day if you're lucky.
Yeah, I would never want to vote Democrat, and their policies are all retrograde, except we need to have the other party be a party that represents the middle and working classes, because if we just have two corporate parties, it's a one-way ticket to hell, and we are free-falling our way there at this very moment, as evidenced by the fragrant gentleman who turned up at your work the other day.
Indeed.
Yeah. Ugh. Man, yeah, it really is. I want so badly for this election season to be wild with fireworks going off and candidates being replaced surreptitiously, and I love the excitement we had. I just worry we're going to settle into a very boring race between two corporate candidates, neither of which who are going to change the trajectory of this country in any meaningful way for the donor class who lavishly supplies their campaign funding.
I think, what we have to hope is that that Donald kind of gets through despite his incompetencies, in that, like, because he has got like the backing of like Elon Musk and RFK and Tulsi Gabbard there, like we kind of have to hope that he kind of there's some kind of like October surprise, and instead of was it the Daily Wire that was suppressed on about the Hunter Biden laptop? Whichever one was the New York Post. That's what it was, right? Was suppressed on like Twitter last time. And Mark Zuckerberg, I guess, is now out on doing what the FBI tells him to do.
Well, that's what he says. I think this guy, I don't trust Zuckerberg, but go ahead.
Well, I think it'll be with Elon like sort of leading the way, it'll be easier for Zuckerberg to not be that way. And he has gone on Joe Rogan at least and expressed some regret about the situation. So,
Facebook these are the guys from the Cambridge Analytica scandal, right? These people are ruthless as far as I'm concerned. I don't know what little word Zuck's comes out of Zuck's mouth.
What was the Cambridge Analytica one again?
Okay, let's see. I'm going to pull it up here, because I don't want to get the details wrong. But Cambridge. Okay, so I'm just going to read the intro here to the Cambridge Analytica scandal, the Facebook-Cambridge Analytica scandal on Facebook on Wikipedia. In the 2010s, personal data belonging to millions of Facebook users was collected without their consent by British consulting firm Cambridge Analytica and predominantly used for political advertising. And then there was also the elections in Cambodia. One of these Southeast Asian countries had elections that there's a whole documentary about this on Netflix. Everyone can look up, but Facebook was paid to heavily influence the results there. Yeah, do not trust Facebook and Google. We'll get into Dr. Mark Epstein's appearance on the JRE in a second here.
Well, we just have to hope that like whoever dredged up the Hunter Biden laptop has something spicy cooking, and that we're going to kind of drag the Donald into office despite his terrible incompetencies, sort of kicking and screaming, and hope that it'll be good. I think is the plan here, right?
Yeah. On the topic of October surprises, there's some interesting astrological symbolism.
Oh boy.
the most of October, those born in October are born under the sign of Scorpio, the backstabbing, stinging insect, and that this zodiac sign corresponds to the apostle Judas, who betrays Jesus at the last hour, and that's why that's where this notion of October surprises comes from. And one of the first October surprises, of course, is the first Black Friday in 1307, Friday, October 13th, 1307, when the Pope ordered the simultaneous arrest of the Knights Templar across Europe. So there's like a weird the idea of an October surprise comes from astrological origins. So I just thought I would mention that interesting point.
Interesting.
But I would love to have an October surprise. I did want to mention the prediction of the lovely Tracy, who had predicted long ago that neither Biden nor the Donald would be allowed to take office, and she turned out to be right about. She was telling her friends this on the like a couple hours before Donald Trump was shot in Pennsylvania. But her prediction is that the Donald's going to win this election handily, more handily than the powers that be can possibly fudge some votes on the margins to try to fix. He's just going to win handily. Her prediction is that Kamala is going to be exposed as the hateful person that she is, exposed as the person who could not win even a single delegate in the 2020 primaries, and had to drop out even prior to Iowa. Tracy thinks that she is going to be exposed as such that the Donald will win handily, and that the powers that be will not allow the Donald to take office anyway, causing a major upset in this country. But I don't know. I just don't think the Donald is exciting enough to garner votes like he used to be. But I hope she turns out to be right. That would be an exciting chain of events.
Well, you got to think that if the deep state were real, that they would be able to keep Donald Trump out of office.
That assumes that the deep state does not want the Donald in office. Definitely was the case in 16. And definitely was the case in 20, but I don't believe it's the case anymore. I think he's got that Wall Street funding. I think he worked for the deep state now.
Well, see, that doesn't explain the shooting.
So it does explain the shooting if the shooting was merely a confused 20-year-old who had read one too many stories about the Donald being the next Hitler, which I believe. Now, I'm open to the idea that the secrets that this was all a conspiracy to get the Donald killed. And if that's the case, then we have a lot more to talk about. But that's a huge leap.
Well, there's a lot of the CIA standing down and not guarding the obvious rooftop. That's pretty inexplicable.
That's the Secret Service. Yeah, it definitely seems like the Secret Service did a horrible job. No question.
One thing I could fathom is maybe this is some kind of foreign influence. Maybe Iran or I don't know, whoever is trying to fight the U.S. Maybe some kind of outside influence. Maybe there's possibly more than one faction who thought this would be a good idea. I don't like the random 20-year-old striking alone and getting extremely lucky that no one decided to guard the roof. But anyway, maybe just another faction or force or something is out there trying to get the Donald shot.
Well, if the Secret Service had been competently brushing aside assassination attempts left and right, I might be inclined to think that way. But to my mind, the simplest explanation is that this is a 20-year-old. When I was a 20-year-old, I was retarded. I was just so backward in my thinking. I just think how foolish I was at age 20. It seems believable to me that a critical mass of the Donald's the new Hitler propaganda. That's if you think Hitler's about to take power, the only rational thing is to take up arms to prevent it from happening, right? Well, it makes perfect sense to me. But
there's a thing where I wasn't expecting the homeless guy to come to the third floor, and so I guess maybe no one was actually expecting someone to shoot the Donald. But on the other hand, dude, the CIA, man,
Secret Service,
the Secret Service. Yeah. They've got one job, man.
Yeah, they stank the joint out, but maybe they're just not that competent. Maybe that's just the reality. I don't know, but I think that what's the law where you don't attribute things to malice when incompetence will do? It's not. It's not the case that it's always just an accident or incompetence. There's definitely conspiracies and malice out there, and this could be one. But I'm just saying, absent conclusive evidence, I think that the easiest explanation is, again, too many Orange Hitler memes, and I mean, it's
and a wealth of incompetence.
yeah. Too many Orange Hitler memes meets meets running around like chickens with their heads cut off.
I mean, it's certainly a possibility. I guess the way I would look at it is like that's like one option. The other option is like the government or like the shadowy forces like within our government were trying to off him. And then I think the third choice is some kind of like outside influence or something. And so
you think there'd be assassination attempts on Kamala because she supports the same horrible imperialist policies that's made people the world over hate the United States. I mean, it's going to be more arms for Israel, right? More arming of Ukraine, more.
Well, the Secret Service is going to actually try to protect her is the thing.
Why would they do that why would the Secret Service be more apt to protect Kamala in her desire to arm Israel than to protect the Donald in his desire to arm Israel?
Well, because, the Donald is the return of Hitler.
Well, in any case, I really want more fireworks and excitement and not just a boring plotting. Like that debate really was no fun at all. I want like excitement. I want the situation to be out of control.
Well, if the Donald does like actually win, maybe Tracy's bold prediction will somehow come true. It'll be really wild. People will be really upset if the Donald wins. So, especially because it seems like he's losing right now. Although I guess from the polls, they're still like pretty close to split.
Yeah. And let's not forget the polls are always understated for the Donald. So if the polls are at dead heat now, that means probably the Donald is slightly ahead.
But he's got to like do something to like give him some belief or
anything,
or something has to come down the pipeline. Yeah. So I mean, the way it's going right now, I think it would be easy for them to like rig an election for Kamala, assuming they have to get her to win in the first place. I don't think they can. They'll need like there needs to be a lot of belief for the Donald for them not just to rig it for Kamala would be my cynical outlook on politics. Yes.
Well, speaking of rigging elections, did you have a chance to hear Dr. Mark Epstein on the JRE?
I sure did. Yeah. I thought it was well, I guess it's like people on Reddit, I guess, were upset about his claims that like Google would modify like the suggested like when you start typing in the search bar to affect political outcomes, which is like the most like of course they would. They'd have to be stupid not to do that, right?
I'm sorry, didn't they just get busted for doing that with respect to the Donald assassination attempt? So if you started typing in presidential assassination, it would give you a whole bunch of stuff about Lincoln, but you wouldn't be able to find the Donald in the. Well, I suppose we should back the truck up for those who haven't heard. The idea here is that Google and their similar search engine outlets are able to greatly affect the outcome far more than you'd think. The Epstein has all of these peer-reviewed papers that show that you get way more effect than you would think from the autocomplete function, right? You go to Google and you start typing in Donald Trump is, and it's going to try to autocomplete that with a whole bunch of negative adjectives about the Donald. But if you meanwhile go to type in Kamala Harris is, you'll get a bunch of Kamala Harris is great. Kamala Harris is a winner, versus Donald Trump is a loser. Donald Trump is a third of money. So
it's always interesting to see what the autocomplete is going to suggest. Yeah. But I mean, if you're like a legitimately undecided voter, which they apparently they are, they do exist, which is like hard to fathom. But on the other hand, it's really not that hard to fathom that if you were undecided and you start typing stuff in the search bar. I mean, how many times have you been typing something in? I don't know. You just click on it, suggests something, and you're like, "Oh yeah, let's do that." It's just so easy and intuitive. It's just so not controversial. But I mean, I guess the guy's he comes across a little weird, and he talks about he's going to have like a meltdown on the podcast, and he comes across a little strange. And like he has some story about how he thought Google was going to kill him for saying all this is basically what he's suggesting. And then his wife died in some kind of accident.
His wife. Yeah. People warned his story. He was on the JRE once before in 2020 or 2021. And people were like, you cannot blow the whistle on Google like this. They are going to kill you. And he said, well, no, that's silly. Like, Google doesn't kill whistleblowers. And then his wife died under extremely mysterious circumstances. She was like killed in this car accident, and the wreck of the car was taken from him, and he couldn't get it back. And it's like a whole crazy story.
That part of the story, knowing something about how insurance works, like what happened is his car was like sold for salvage after the accident. I mean, that part all sounds pretty routine. Like that's just what you would expect expect, I guess if someone died, there should be like an investigation to cause, and they should be trying to get the computer module out of the car to see what happened.
None of that happened. It just got all swept under the rug.
Well, I don't know. Like, for the things that he said specifically aren't unusual. Well, it's hard to know like what kind of investigation like the insurance company did or anyone else into like what happened in the accident. But broadly speaking, the bit where it's like sent to Mexico and sold per parts is like totally normal.
Yeah.
It's just my expert take there.
I see.
But anyway, I mean, he threatened Google and his wife died, and he's like a bit of a nervous guy, and so I guess he comes across as strange. But I mean, just his claim is just so like absolutely like so like obvious. Like if you've ever like used the internet, I mean, you should be able to put one and one together. And it's just funny because he's saying that Google affects our election results. They have to like come and astroturf this idea. And I mean, well, the Joe Rogan subreddit is like the most astroturf subreddit of all time. If you want to like hate yourself, you can go there and see what people are saying about like when you had like Brett Weinstein on there recently. And yeah, it's a rough place.
Epstein and his associates are doing this. They're surveilling Google and other major tech companies as well. And you can see his work at americasdigitalshield.com. And what they're doing is they have a whole bunch of agents in the field, that's what they call them, and these people, when they work their computers are being screenshotted, and the screenshots are being sent back to Mark Epstein and his functionaries, and they're able to see what autocomplete options Google is giving people. These are called ephemeral experiences, and Google itself, one of their internal memos about like, the idea that Reddit would be like, this is crazy, this can't possibly be true. What Google admitted in their own memo, right? They got busted in 2020. One of their internal memos got leaked in which the muckety mucks over at Google were discussing using ephemeral experiences to create a negative public opinion of the Donald's 2020 COVID era travel ban to other countries, banning Muslims from coming to this country, from certain Muslim country. It wasn't. He had a list of countries that we were banning flights from, and they were like all these Muslim countries. And the people at Google were wanting to generate a negative public opinion of that, and the way that they were going to do this is through ephemeral experiences. That is to say, when you're typing that Donald Trump is in the Google search bar and you get 5 suggestions below it, what those suggestions are, you could never get that. You could never. It's not recorded anywhere. That's why it's called an ephemeral experience. And the autocomplete might be different the next time you try it. But these are the tools Google uses to drastically swing public opinion. And so on americasdigitalshield.com, they go back and model the 2020 and 2022 elections, and you can see they're able to model how the elections would have gone without these ephemeral experiences, and how they would have, and how they did versus how they actually did go. Very interesting stuff. So, yeah, the Dr. Mark Epstein episode of the JRE was something to behold.
Well, the other thing he gets into is he just has this idea about evolution, and that probably, our DNA or our bodies are, well, they're taking advantage of like consciousness from some higher dimension, right?
Yes. His idea, transduction theory, is that the pineal gland in the brain is a two-way transducer. And the example he uses for transduction is the microphones you and I are speaking on right now. They're one-way transducers. They're taking the words from our lips and then delivering them to the ear of our listener in like a one-way street. And his suggestion is that the pineal gland, seated at the root of the brain, and symbolized by things historically like the pine cone, is in fact a two-way transducer that makes our brains akin to an antenna receiving a television signal, and not so much a computer with a hard drive and a processor, which is the analogy that we usually use to think of our brains, right? Does that sound more or less what Epstein was saying to you?
Yeah, and he was just saying this would explain like why we don't really remember our dreams, because it is well, I don't know, I guess when you're asleep you're going into whatever it is, and it's not happening in your brain, I guess is the point.
The hard drive is located elsewhere, and the impression of your dream may remain in your short-term random access memory temporarily. It's the hard drive on which it's permanently located is not local to your cranium. And so that's why your dreams, it's hard, you can't hold on to them. And
Well,
same with psychedelic experiences.
Well, at any rate, T-Mac has been saying this forever.
Oh, yeah.
And, I was, after doing mushies, I was, saying this back in college and whatnot.
Yeah, there are just certain experiences that leave you, that make it impossible to think that the experiences that you're having are explicable by local file storage in your brain. Absolutely. It's a great theory. His point is that we aren't looking for transduction in the brain. We've long used books or now a computer for an analogy for our brains, and that scientists just haven't looked under that rock, and that he's trying to get some brilliant minds together to do just that. And the way he puts it, that this could overturn our understanding of consciousness in the next 10 years. So we'll see. Those are some pretty bold claims by Dr. Epstein, eh?
I'm glad that someone wants to seriously investigate it. It does seem super obvious.
Yeah.
And, it explains a lot. I guess what you need is some kind of higher level of dimensionality, but I mean it explains so much about it explains what's special about humans, right? Is they've evolved to their antenna is just way stronger than any other creature, right? And that's why it's why we have a sense of morality and a sense of the past and the present and the future. And then lobsters just, crudely claw at whatever's in front of them, basically. So, yeah.
Yeah, they're lacking some kind of they're unable to partially conceive extra dimensionally. Lobsters are in the way that something is definitely different about us versus all the other creatures that the 3D printer of evolution has spat out, eh?
Yeah, well, and it just, you can just imagine the universe is just this place of chaos. And then you kind of start getting some self-replicating patterns, and eventually you get something like DNA. And then just if that DNA is able to harness that higher dimensionality or whatever, that is a crazy singularity. But that's what the singularity of life basically is, when that self-replicating pattern finally bridges that gap somehow, right?
Yeah.
And that kind of anomaly, give it enough time, sort of makes sense that it would happen if that's how it works. And it sure explains the sort of miracle of life that we're having in everything about our experience. And so I'm sure it seems pretty straightforward.
Well, when economic systems collapse, that's really just a part of a greater collapse in systems of belief, right? That's why when medieval economy collapsed in the wake of the Black Death and the coming of the Renaissance and of the Protestant Reformation, there was also concomitant with that a total overturning of our conception of ourselves, right? You get the discovery that the Earth orbits the sun instead of the sun orbiting the Earth. All of reality is flipped on its head. When you have when economic systems are humming along efficiently, no one really cares whether the emperor has any clothes or not. It's when there's homeless people invading your workplace that you start to say, okay, what's going on here? Why are we having less and less functionality? And that leads people to re-examine or revisit assumptions that are baked into the belief systems that people had just kind of unconsciously passed through generations when the systems were working well. And so as we round the corner into a time of great dysfunction here in post-2012, why we should expect that our very conception of reality itself will collapse along with our economic system. And the way I see it, it's really like two balls rolling down. You know, the marbles that roll down a track, you kind of race them. Well, on the one hand, we've got finance capital where that's constantly creating more dollars of debt than dollars of currency, leading to a potential collapse. And on the other hand, we've got industrial capital, where the application of new technology makes people's jobs less and less relevant to the production process, and you have less and less need for employees on the part of employers, and an event, which is awesome. Just what the employers wanted is to have to not have to pay for employees, except for uncomfortably, if no one has employees, there's no one to buy the products being created at the factories or the services being provided by these employers. And so we've got two collapse scenarios. It's just a question of which one blows us up first. Which spiny shell is going to hit our cart first.
A nice Mario Kart reference there.
Yeah. When that cart blows up, we should expect our very conception of the fabric of reality of itself to also blow up. And so I'm thinking maybe this Mark Epstein theory about transduction in the brain, and the pineal gland could possibly be the vector from which that crazy overturning of reality comes. Now, what do you think, Brian?
Well, we got to apply like science with like a small s towards like some new things, right? And it seems like Eric Weinstein's trying to make that happen, and
his unity
and then
theory,
this Epstein
geometric
guy,
unity.
also having a go at it. So that's some encouraging stuff here.
Yeah, there's the Dutch astronomer Tycho Brahe and Nicholas Copernicus and Galileo Galilei of Pisa. These guys are starting to circle the wagons again, just like they did during the Renaissance and the Scientific Revolution and the Protestant Reformation. We're getting dissidents are starting, like they put Galileo under house arrest, but ultimately the church couldn't put the right of people to look through telescopes and speculate about the results. They couldn't put that genie back in the bottle. And the scientific revolution was the result. So, it's like you have to keep your eye on institutions. Right? Christianity started out as a hippy-dippy, plucky rebellion and eventually calcified into a moribund authority. And that's what's happened to science. It was once the upstart rebel, and now it's the calcified authority. Then we have to begin the process anew. We need a new revolution in thought. And so maybe Dr. Mark Epstein or Eric, a lot of Weinsteins and Epsteins here.
Yeah,
they all have. They're like you can say your name like Jeffrey Epstein, right, or like Harvey Weinstein, or you can also say that same name as Einstein or Weinstein or Epstein.
And I guess if you say it the wrong way, you're a person of terrible evil. And
it does seem
if you say it the other way, you're a bold revolutionary.
How you pronounce that last syllable, Stein, the German Stein. The Germans, the key to Germans, when you see the E and the I in German, you just enunciate the second syllable. So Stein, the German word for stone, Stein, you just pronounce the I, Stein. So Einstein and Weinstein and Epstein have the proper German pronunciation, and then Harvey Weinstein and Jeffrey Epstein, the villains, have the wrong pronunciation. So if your name cleaves to proper German enunciation, why then you can be assured that they are a good guy, right? Is that what you're saying? And then if they have the wrong pronunciation, they're a villain.
If I was an Epstein, I would definitely it's actually Epstein now.
Yeah.
So,
well, right. Yeah, the wine. Now I'm getting confused. The Weinsteins and the Epsteins have ruined things for the Epsteins and the Weinsteins. They have to make sure they...
I think it's the other way around.
Oh, yeah, I'm getting confused now. But anyway, the joke, our listeners, I'm sure, will appreciate the joke, eh?
Okay.
Well, Brian, I think this is the moment when I usually exhort our venerable listeners to pay a visit to nop.substack.com, where you can read some shocking essays that will titillate your imagination, written by me. And you can also sign up for the weekly newsletter to get them delivered straight to your email inbox. Very convenient. And also, I invite anyone within the sound of our voice to send us an email and let us know what you think of our crackpot theories at substack.com. We hope to see you all on the internet. Have a great week.